really feels like we should be there by now.
Anyway, Titans and Saints. And Saints are favored by 3 here. We get the new look Saints offense. Derek Carr coming in, Michael Thomas coming back, and the Tennessee Titans coming off an offseason where they were half rebuilding and half retooling and staying competitive. And Treylon Burks was back at practice this week. Kind of a key player here, year 2 wide receiver to pair with DeAndre Hopkins. Ryan Tannehill still there, Derrick Henry back and healthy. What are you looking for in this one?
Yeah, I mean, that's an important aspect for them. I do think that DeAndre Hopkins, Nuke Hopkins, can still really play and really be effective. But I do think he also needs somebody that can scare defenses vertically. Like, he can't really do that anymore. Like, teams are not afraid of getting up in his face and pressing him at the line and riding him down the sideline. Now, he might make some of those plays at the catch point anyway, but you need someone that can scare a defense back and back them off so that you have some of that space. Underneath, it's not going to be Hopkins. It might be Treylon Burks. So that is a big development for them. You know, we know the narrative on Tennessee is going to stay the same. They overachieve relative to their roster. The Saints, though, I mean, Michael Thomas is coming back again for the 15th time in a row. And look, it may only last a couple of weeks, you know, before he breaks something else and he's done forever. But you probably at least get a week. And if you get a week of Michael Thomas, that whole offense is fun.
Is that your analysis? We're going to get at least a week of Michael
Seriously,
Thomas.
though, like, even if the whole thing blows up and Michael Thomas gets injured again and he lasts 58 snaps, right? And that's it. Done. Oh, well, I told you so, everyone's going to be saying. I knew he was a crock. It was never going to happen. But that's enough. That's this game. So if you get, I mean, if this is what this looks like, Derek Carr behind a decent offensive line, throwing to Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Juwan Johnson, you know, that's a potent offense.
I like all those roles, man, because we've talked a million times about Shaheed as a legitimate deep threat, Michael Thomas as your possession guy. I think Olave is a wide receiver 1, you know, top 10 to 15 type of receiver in the NFL. And then Juwan Johnson, a former receiver, turned tight end who can stretch the seam, and Jimmy Graham even as a red zone basketball player. Jimmy Graham made more good plays this preseason than he did his last 4 years in the NFL. Just saying.
That's not difficult.
If he's rejuvenated. All of those weapons for Derek Carr. And look, when Derek Carr's had his alpha-type receiver and a deep threat, he's had a lot of success. I think he's set up to have a good season, Derek Carr.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I don't think Jimmy Graham's going to be a part of it, but yes.
I'll throw Jimmy Graham in. And Taysom Hill. I forgot to include Taysom Hill.
Taysom Hill.
Now, here's what's interesting.
Still listed as a quarterback, by the way.
That's for the third QB purposes, right? The extra roster spot. If you call him a quarterback, he could be your third quarterback. You steal a roster spot, I believe.
I don't think you steal one. So they put out the kind of redone rules of that thing. It doesn't seem to actually do anything other than...
It looks nothing. It looks like, nothing's changed except you just
have to carry that guy on a roster now in order to use him. But you can't use him if it gets there.
I will say this. The Taysom Hill package in the red zone, I was not a huge fan of it when Drew Brees was the quarterback because I thought, hey, Drew Brees is still your best red zone weapon because he can throw and run play action and everything. Derek Carr has had some red zone struggles, right? Mm-hmm. This, fourth down throwaways and different things. So this could be a nice pairing to use Taysom Hill in the tight red zone for Derek Carr in particular. Just something to keep an eye on. Mm-hmm. But I'll be watching the Saints defensive front. We've talked a lot about that this summer. They're young. They need their former first-round picks, Peyton Turner, current first-round pick, Brian Bresee, second-round pick, Isaiah Foskey. They need those guys to step up as they've had a lot of turnover there. And against the Titans' offensive line, they could have some success, at least rushing the passer.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm going to be interested to see what Tennessee's defense generally can look like because they've sort of retooled that group, certainly up front, quite a lot. And Arden Key is one of the most interesting players on it to me because we've talked about it plenty. Like, he failed, I guess, initially in his NFL career as one of these lightweight edge rushers, then put on some weight, became a really useful situational rusher, and now the Titans are saying, all right, let's see if he can go back to being a full-time player. and it still works. You add that, obviously Jeffrey Simmons is the alpha in that group, but they've got some other useful players as well. And Harold Landry returning. Harold Landry, I think, was potentially always a little bit overrated in terms of he got a lot of pressure. He also never came off the field, so it took him 1,000 snaps to get the pressure total that he got. But the pressure itself is valuable. Like getting, 60-something pressures over a season is worthwhile. It is useful. It's just not necessarily as good as it looks when you're playing 1,000 snaps to do it. So, this Titans defense, they can get pressure up front. They can probably stop the run. The back end, adding guys like Sean Murphy-Bunting, Roger McCreary, I think, could be a really useful player for them. He's sort of typifies that feistiness at corner, and it was always that way even in college. So the defense, I think, is primed to do what it usually does, which is sort of overachieve with the coaching staff that they have.
I'm trying not to overreact to the Titans' collapse at the end of last season. I don't want to overreact to it.
The big thing is their offensive line, though.
But yeah, go ahead.
The big thing is their offensive line. Like, that defense will probably overachieve, relative to the talent level. We expect that. Ryan Tannehill is still a good player. Derrick Henry is still a good player. Now he's got Tajee Spears behind him. Traylon Burks, DeAndre Hopkins. Like, they've got receivers that can play. None of it matters if that offensive line is still the worst unit in the NFL, which it was a year ago. They've massively overhauled it. Andre Dillard comes in. Peter Skoronski in the draft comes in. Like, it's going to be a sequence of new starters, but most of those new starters are wildly unproven. Like, we think Peter Skoronski is maybe the best offensive lineman in the entire draft, but he's now starting at guard in the NFL. It's a different thing, right? Peter Skoronski could easily suck year one. We don't know. He could be good, but it's absolutely within his range of outcomes to not be good. Andre Dillard never worked at left tackle in the NFL. Now, he didn't get that much opportunity, and he quite quickly lost his job to Jordan Mailata, which, itself is a fairly significant red flag. Like, first rounder loses out to a 7th-round rugby player that had never really played the game before. That's not great.
But Mailata's really good, so we know that.
He is, yeah, but at some point, like, that's not a change that gets made just because the guy ends up being really good. Like, you need the first guy. The first round pick is given every opportunity to not have that happen. So for it to happen means, in addition to Mailata being really good, Dillard must have been terrible. So Dillard is now coming in. He's got to be their left tackle again. So I'm just saying, they've made a lot of changes, and the chances are, given where they were coming from, it's going to be better, because it would be difficult to be worse. But there's a lot of potential for that group to still be a problem.
All right, so as far as picking the game, Saints are favored by 3. All that said about the Titans' O-line, I kind of like them in this game. I like the Saints, but I like the Titans here in Week 1 as 3-point underdogs.